Hello all, let us see about IoT communication models. First, let us see about REST API. The REST API is Representational State Transfer Application Programming Interface. Why it is representational state transfer? The representational means that the data is sent as a representation of resource in the form of JSON, HTML, and XML. The state transfer means that the server transfers the state of information between the client and the server. What is application programming interface? Imagine you are a customer going to a restaurant. If you want to order a food, you call the waiter, make a request for the food, and the waiter will provide the request to the kitchen as a chef. The chef prepares the food or the response and give back to the waiter. The waiter then serves the food as a response to the client or the customer, that is you. In this model, the customer acts as the client who makes the request. The waiter will access the API who carries the request and the response, and the chef or the kitchen acts as their server, which provides the response. The REST API is a type of API that allows you to communicate between different devices over the internet. It follows a request response communication model. The REST API is half duplex and it works by sending a request by the client and receiving back the response from the server. The REST API is commonly implemented using HTTP and REST principles. The client sends a request to the URI or the URL that we provide over the HTTP or HTTPS methods like get, post, put, and delete. Get means getting some information from the server. Post means providing some information to the server. Put and delete are used for changing the information in the server. This is the overall communication model with REST API. The HTTP client will provide a request to the HTTP server through the HTTP packets. The HTTP packets will contain the HTTP command or the methods, that is get, put, post or delete, and the REST payloads in the form of JSON or XML. The HTTP server will authenticate the HTTP packets from the client, and through the resources it has, it provides back the response to the client. Let us see about REST API architecture. The REST API follows a client-server model. The client will provide a request to the server, and the server reply back with the response. The REST API is stateless, which means that the server will not be able to store any information about the client. It will treat each request from the client as a new request. The REST API, however, follows a principle called catchable. The response sent by the server gets be catched at client side, which means that the client can store information about the request it has sent for the server. The catchable property allows the REST API to load the responses more faster. The REST API follows a layered system, which means that there is a clear separation between functionalities followed by different entities. The REST API has a uniform interface, which means that it will work as same for all the devices and all the platforms. The REST API follows a code on demand property, which means that it enables to access the code based on a specific request. That is, based on a specific request, the code that is going to be executed might change. Let us see about WebSocket API. The WebSocket API, unlike REST API, has a full duplex communication between the client and server. It follows the exclusive web pair communication model. The, the REST API is stateless. However, the WebSocket based communication API is stateful. It stores the information about the client requesters in the server. In WebSocket API, there is no need for connection establishment for each request. The connection will prevail for the entire communication between the client and the server. The WebSocket API is mostly used for low latency IoT applications and in chatbot chat applications and for gaming applications. This is the overall communication model with WebSocket API. First, the client requests the server to create a connection. The server accepts the request from the client and creates a connection between the client and the server. These steps are the first creation of connection step is known as initial handshake or WebSocket handshake. Then through the connection, the data frames are transferred between client and the server. For closing the connection, the client server close connection request and the server accepts the request and closes the communication between the client. This is how the WebSocket API works. Thank you.